Hey everyone, my name is Matt and welcome back to the farm. Today's video, we're going to try to wrap up this Ford 1720 compact tractor that came here with a bad water pump. We've got that job done, fixed, repaired. So last thing we have to do is change the engine oil and all the filters on the tractor, and we have a couple hoses on the loader that need to get replaced as well. Before we can start the tractor up, I got to put the hoses back on. I went through this morning, got the hoses off, and then took them to my local Napa Auto Parts and had some new ones made. So we're going to get these put on and finished up, and then we can start the tractor, let the oil warm up, and get the engine oil draining on it. A lot of compact agricultural construction equipment, they use many different types of fittings to connect their hoses and steel lines to the tractors. As far as hoses go, one of the most common fittings is a GIC fitting. I don't remember what GIC stands for. I used to, but I just don't remember anymore. But usually on the implement end, whether it be a cylinder or a steel line, you'll have your male GIC fitting, and then usually on the hose you'll have your female fitting. That's what's pretty common with a lot of antique equipment, compact tractors and loaders. They use banjo style fittings, they'll use a flat face O-ring fitting, but a lot of times, especially on loaders, this is what you'll run across is GIC fittings. Alright, for all you safety Sams out there, this one's for you. I'm just kidding. You can never be too safe when it comes to working with loaders in the air like this. So I got 2 or 3 different pieces of angle iron cut for safety arms for loaders. That comes back to my Bobcat days when I used to work on them. Bobcat actually manufactured a stiff arm, and they were fastened somewhere on the machine, and every time you put the loader in the air, you put that stiff arm in. There was no questions asked. It was always just something we always did. So I got a couple of these, and that's all they do, loader safety arm. I got them stored around here in the shop, and that's what their purpose is. All right. I even remembered what size it was, 17 millimeter. And I gotta get this tin trout off of here, because in behind that is the fuel filter and the engine oil filter. And we'll screw the new filter on. And we'll turn the fuel shut off on and see about getting this filter. Yeah, there we go. Sometimes you got to use a crescent wrench on those. That one come off pretty good. And put the new fuel filter in. Make sure the fuel bowl's seated up against the filter housing. And then work on getting the threaded collar on. This is always the fun part. It's fine thread, so it sometimes doesn't start very easy, but we got her. Turn the fuel on. Now these, you always got to make sure you use a wrench to hold the bottom fitting, because the bottom fitting here is a banjo bolt that holds the fuel line to the injection pump. So you don't want to disturb the brass washers that are in there and possibly cause a leak. So you always got to hold. You can see the bubbles in the air start to escape out. Looks like the fuel bowl's starting to fill up with fuel. And now I can start seeing fuel collect on top of the injection pump. So we'll let that bleed just for a minute. There it goes, running down the injection pump, side of the injection pump. So we ought to have a good stream of fuel. Now we can tighten this back up. Just needs to be snug, doesn't need to be overly tight. We got the engine oil filter changed, the fuel filters changed, fuel systems bled. A lot of these Ford New Holland 10 and 20 series tractors, along with the TC series tractors, are bled the same way, fuel system wise. Well, now that we got the engine oil and fuel filter changed, we'll put the drain plug back in this and we'll get some Earl back in it. Then we can move on to the hydraulics. And where did my ratchet go? Apparently I didn't leave it under here. Oh, up and down, up and down. That's one thing I don't miss about being a mechanic for a living. And there's the first 4 quarts. And this being a little 3-cylinder, I think I'm going to start with 4 quarts and check it. I honestly don't remember how much goes in this tractor. And I'm glad I stopped there, because that's just about right at the full mark. And I'll put the oil fill cap back on so we don't forget about that. Might as well check the power steering fluid while we're here. And that looks low. We'll have to top that off with some hydraulic oil. Let's change the air filter. Well, let's see how dirty this thing is. Dirty enough. And we're going to pull this rubber gasket off, because there is debris underneath this cover. Now we got that all good and cleaned out. Line everything back up, these 2 tabs along with the slit in this rubber gasket. There. Line all this back up. Good enough. Well, let's see if this old girl starts. Okay, so we got the loader back down. We got this shroud down here reinstalled. I had to put the battery hold down back on from when I did the water pump. I didn't get around to doing that earlier, but that's on now. One thing I do have to do yet from the water pump job is put this rubber hose on that goes from the inlet of the air cleaner over. It's where the fresh air gets sucked in from the front of the tractor. But before we do that, we're going to do the hydraulic oil filter and get that changed. Well, let's see how easy this loosens up. Oh, that's really loose. Man, everything's gone good on this so far. Hopefully I don't lose a whole bunch of hydraulic oil. That oil don't look too awful bad for a tractor that sits out all the time. I was kind of concerned to see how milky it was, but looks pretty good. So the proper way to check the hydraulic oil level on this tractor is with the loader all the way down, the bucket curled all the way back, and a 3-point hitch down as far as it can go. This has a rototiller on it. I'm not taking the implement off, so it'll be close enough. The idea is to put as much oil back in the sump of the tractor, sump or transmission housing, as much as possible to get the oil level at its maximum height in the transmission. So the oil dipstick tube on this tractor is between your feet right here. So we're going to pull the dipstick, clean her off, reinstall, and we look good. It's right in the full mark. Well, let's check the engine oil while we're at it. Before, that was just off the full mark before running it, so I expect it to be a little bit lower. And I'm going to say we're right where we need to be. It's right here. It's better than 3/4 of the way up on the hash mark, because here's the full mark. So I say we're good. And last but not least, as far as fluids to check, is the front axle oil on this. This should have a dipstick on it. Yep. Same thing, we'll just wipe it off. Screw it back in. And looks like we might be a little bit low. New Holland used hydraulic oil in their front axle. They did not use gear oil. New Holland was notorious for using what they called 134 in everything. It was their hydraulic oil, and it was also the same oil they used in the front axle and then in the final drives as well. We're good now. We got oil on the steak. Well, we just about got this project all wrapped up. All we got left to do is grease the tractor and the loader, and it'll be done. But we got to get chores done yet tonight, so I want to get this wrapped up. So if you enjoyed the video and you found it informative, give it a thumbs up. If you like our channel, as always, we ask you to subscribe. We hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time. So I'm finishing up working on this tractor, and I hear a noise, and I take a look, and I got a hot air balloon floating over the house.